The Midnight Visitor. In a small village nestled at the foot of the mountains, life was simple and uneventful. Everyone knew each other, and nothing much ever changed. But one night, everything shifted with the arrival of a strange visitor. A mysterious man had arrived from Bishkek just a few days earlier. He settled in an old, abandoned barn on the edge of the village. He never spoke to anyone. Each evening, he would quietly walk into the village, buy some bread and water, and return without a word. The village children began calling him the man in the black hat because he always wore a long black coat and a hat that hid his eyes. One evening, a young schoolteacher named Samat grew curious. He had always dreamed of becoming a journalist and was constantly looking for a story to uncover. That night, driven by curiosity, he grabbed his flashlight and headed toward the old barn. When Sam arrived, he noticed something strange. The barn door was half open, and light was coming from inside. Slowly, he pushed the door and stepped in, only to freeze in shock. The inside of the barn had been completely transformed. The walls were cleaned up, and shelves full of books, maps, old radios, and mysterious folders lined the space. The man in the black hat was marking something on a map. Samat coughed gently to announce his presence. The man turned and gave a small smile. "You've come? I've been waiting for you, Samat." Samat stood frozen. "How does he know my name?" "Your grandfather was my closest friend," the man continued. "We made a promise long ago, a mission to be passed down through generations. And now, it's your turn." That night, Samat had no idea that his life would change forever. He had just inherited a secret mission, one that would send him on a journey to a mysterious place marked on that map. To uncover a forgotten truth, solve an ancient puzzle, and walk in the footsteps of his grandfather. The Map of Echoes. Samat couldn't sleep that night. Even after he returned to his small house near the village school, the man's words echoed in his mind like distant thunder. "Now, it's your turn." The map the stranger had shown him wasn't just a map of the village. It was ancient, its paper yellowed and edges burned. Strange symbols lined its corners, and near the center was a red mark shaped like an X, right in the forest behind the northern hills. Above it, in old-style Cyrillic, was written uneventful, the place of echoes. Samat stared at the ceiling, heart racing. What kind of mission could my grandfather have been part of? Why didn't he ever tell me? By morning, he had made up his mind. He slipped on his hiking boots, packed a small bag with water, bread, a compass, a notebook, and just in case, a small knife. Before leaving, he stopped by the barn again. But the door was locked. No sign of the man. No light inside. Just silence. It was as if the man had vanished. Yet Samat felt no fear, only determination. He began the long hike up the northern path, through pine trees and rocky soil, following the general direction he remembered from the map. By mid-afternoon, he reached a part of the forest he had never entered before. The trees grew taller, denser. The air felt heavier. Birds were strangely quiet. And then, he heard it. A whisper. It wasn't the wind. It was too clear, too human. It said his name. Samat. He spun around. No one was there. His heart thudded. Maybe it was just his mind. He pressed on, stepping over roots and ducking under branches, until he came to a small clearing. At the center stood a tall stone, shaped like an obelisk, covered in moss and ancient carvings. Samat approached, breath held. On the front face of the stone, someone had etched a symbol that matched one from the map, a sun with 3 rays. Beneath it, written in his grandfather's handwriting, was a note sealed in a glass tube, wedged into a crack in the stone. He gently pulled it out and unrolled the paper. "If you've come this far, Samat, then the voices have chosen you too. What lies beneath this stone must not fall into the wrong hands. Dig only if your heart is certain. They will be watching." His hands trembled. Who were they? And what exactly had his grandfather left buried under this ancient stone? Samat looked up. The sky had grown darker, though the sun hadn't yet set. Somewhere deep in the trees, something moved. The Map of Echoes. Samat couldn't sleep that night. Even after he returned to his small house near the village school, the man's words echoed in his mind like distant thunder. "Now, it's your turn." The map the stranger had shown him wasn't just a map of the village. It was ancient, its paper yellowed and edges burned. Strange symbols lined its corners, and near the center was a red mark shaped like an X, right in the forest behind the northern hills. Above it, in old-style Cyrillic, was written, uneventful, the place of echoes. Samat stared at the ceiling, heart racing. What kind of mission could my grandfather have been part of? Why didn't he ever tell me? By morning, he had made up his mind. He slipped on his hiking boots, packed a small bag with water, bread, a compass, a notebook, and just in case, a small knife. Before leaving, he stopped by the barn again. But the door was locked. No sign of the man. No light inside. Just silence. It was as if the man had vanished. Yet Samat felt no fear, only determination. He began the long hike up the northern path, through pine trees and rocky soil, following the general direction he remembered from the map. By mid-afternoon, he reached a part of the forest he had never entered before. The trees grew taller, denser. The air felt heavier. Birds were strangely quiet. And then, he heard it. A whisper. It wasn't the wind. It was too clear, too human. It said his name. Samat. He spun around. No one was there. His heart thudded. Maybe it was just his mind. He pressed on, stepping over roots and ducking under branches, until he came to a small clearing. At the center stood a tall stone, shaped like an obelisk, covered in moss and ancient carvings. Samat approached, breath held. On the front face of the stone, someone had etched a symbol that matched one from the map, a sun with 3 rays. Beneath it, written in his grandfather's handwriting, was a note sealed in a glass tube, wedged into a crack in the stone. He gently pulled it out and unrolled the paper. If you've come this far, Samat, then the voices have chosen you too. What lies beneath this stone must not fall into the wrong hands. Dig only if your heart is certain. They will be watching. His hands trembled. Who were they? And what exactly had his grandfather left buried under this ancient stone? Samat looked up. The sky had grown darker, though the sun hadn't yet set. Somewhere deep in the trees, something moved. Beneath the stone, Samat's breath caught in his throat. The trees around the clearing were motionless, but he felt it, a presence. Not exactly human, not exactly animal, but ancient. Watching, waiting. His grandfather's message repeated in his mind. Dig only if your heart is certain. Samat hesitated for a moment, then nodded to himself. I didn't come this far to turn back now. He pulled a small collapsible shovel from his backpack and began digging beside the obelisk. The earth was firm, but the soil under the mossy surface gave way quicker than expected, almost as if it had been disturbed before, perhaps years ago. About 2 feet deep, his shovel hit something solid. A box. Wooden. Dark. Weather-worn. Its iron edges were rusted, and the lock was long broken. Samat lifted it gently, brushing off the dirt. He sat cross-legged on the forest floor and slowly opened it. Inside was a thick leather-bound journal, a rusted compass that still pointed north, a small velvet pouch, and a photograph. Old, faded, torn at the edges. Samat's fingers trembled as he picked up the photo. It was his grandfather, standing with the same black-hatted man he had met in the barn. But in the photo, they were young. Behind them was the same obelisk, only it looked new, clean, as if time hadn't touched it yet. His eyes shifted to the journal. He opened it to the first page. March 12th, 1963, Operation Echo begins. We are no longer explorers. We are witnesses. The next page was filled with sketches of underground tunnels, strange cave symbols, and warnings written in red ink. Do not open the 3rd gate. Ever. If you hear your name from the stone, run. They learn through sound. Samat felt a chill up his spine. He picked up the velvet pouch and opened it. Inside was a stone. Black, smooth, and warm. It pulsed faintly in his hand like a heartbeat. As he held it, a whisper passed through his mind. Do not return the way you came. He dropped the stone instantly. The whisper stopped. Then, from behind the trees, a branch snapped. Samat froze. Another voice whispered, this time not from within, but aloud, echoing between the trees like a ghost. You weren't supposed to find this. Samat stood up, gripping the journal tightly, heart pounding. The box, the photo, even the velvet pouch, he shoved them back into his bag. He didn't know what had been awakened, but something had definitely noticed him, and it did not want to be found. From deep in the woods, dark shapes began to move, just outside the edge of his vision. He turned and ran. The watchers in the trees. Branches whipped across Samat's face as he ran, thorns catching at his clothes. His breath came fast and shallow, the trees a blur. The air behind him pulsed, as if something enormous was moving, but soundlessly. He dared not look back. He didn't know what he'd awakened, only that it didn't belong to the ordinary world. Finally, he stumbled out of the thick forest, collapsing to his knees at the edge of a dried-up stream. The village was still far below, but at least the trees weren't closing in on him anymore. The journal. He pulled it from his bag and flipped through the pages. His grandfather's handwriting filled the old parchment like a frantic mind pouring out memories before they vanished. They were never ghosts. They were never myths. The stones are older than our languages, and the voices are real. They mimic us, they lure with sound, but they fear the light. Samat looked up at the dimming sky. Evening was falling fast. He grabbed the compass. It spun wildly, unable to decide which way was north. The black stone in his bag throbbed faintly again, as if responding to something nearby. Then, behind him, a voice. A whisper, no louder than a leaf brushing across skin. "Why did you take it?" This time, the voice wasn't distant. It was right behind his ear. He spun around, but no one was there. Only trees and shadows that no longer moved like shadows should. He didn't wait. Following the dry stream bed, Samat made his way down the hills toward the village. Every few steps, he swore he heard another footstep behind him, matching his pace just half a beat late. The village lights blinked below like fireflies. Just as he reached the edge of the school grounds, he felt a sharp burning sensation on his shoulder. He flinched and dropped to the ground. Pulling back his shirt, he found a red mark forming, a perfect circle with 3 rays, the exact symbol from the obelisk. It had appeared on his skin. Back in his house, doors locked and curtains drawn, Samat sat under a single lamp and opened the journal again. His hands trembled as he turned to a bookmarked page. The boy who carries the mark must never answer the call, not even if it's a voice he loves. They'll imitate anything, even family. A chill ran through him. His phone buzzed. It was a call from his mother. But his mother lived in another town, and he had just spoken to her that morning. He didn't answer. Then the phone buzzed again. Same number. Same name. Only this time, a voicemail came through. He opened it with a shaking hand. "Samat, it's me. I'm lost. In the woods. I can't find you. Please, answer me." His mother's voice. Soft. Scared. But at the end, something was wrong. She giggled. Just faintly. A cold, unnatural giggle, like a child mimicking a laugh it didn't understand. Samat dropped the phone. He was being hunted. But not just by creatures. By memories. By sound itself. Echoes of the forgotten. The voicemail replayed in his mind like a broken record. "Samat, it's me. I'm lost. In the woods. I can't find you. Please answer me." Then that soft, eerie giggle. Not quite human, not quite wrong. Something wearing his mother's voice like a mask. Samat turned off the phone and removed the battery. He didn't care how advanced the thing was. If they could mimic voices, who knew what else they could reach? The night deepened outside. Through his window, the forest line glowed faintly in the moonlight, as if watching him. He lit a candle and opened the journal again. Page after page was filled with names. Names of people he'd never heard of. Almaz K. Reisa D. Bexon T. Each one had a red X beside it. Then he saw it. His grandfather's name, Murad Ali K. Next to it, no red X. Just a question mark. Samat flipped ahead, his heart pounding. Near the end of the journal was a loose page, folded neatly and sealed with wax. The wax bore the symbol now burned onto his shoulder, the sun with 3 rays. He hesitated, then broke the seal. Inside was a letter, handwritten, to the one who carries the mark. "If you're reading this, I am either gone or no longer myself. The voice that mimics me may come. Do not trust it. Do not follow it. They dwell under the earth, in the spaces we pretend don't exist. They feed on memory and voice. The more you remember, the more they can shape. Your gift, Samat, is not just hearing them. You can resist. You can listen and still remain whole. But only if you never reply. There is a second obelisk. It lies in the echo caverns beyond the red cliff. You must reach it before the solstice moon, or the gate will open, and they will cross. Do not go alone. Find the listener. Muradali. Samat sat back in shock. His grandfather knew. He had faced them. And more. He had expected Samat would too. But what was the listener? And what was this gate they wanted to cross? Suddenly a knock. Not at the door. At the window. Slow. Deliberate. Knock. Pause. Knock knock. Pause. Knock. The rhythm chilled his blood. It wasn't random. Samat stood up, heart thundering. He peeked through the curtain. Nothing. No one was there. But as he turned back, he froze. His grandfather stood in the corner of the room. Same eyes. Same smile. Same gentle voice. Ooh, thought. I knew you'd find it. You've done well. For a long moment, Samat just stared. But then, he remembered the journal's words. The voice that mimics me may come. Samat didn't move. The figure stepped closer. Don't be afraid. It's really me. Another step. The shadows clung to the figure unnaturally. Samat whispered, mostly to himself. You're not him. The figure tilted its head. The smile never changed. Then, like wax melting in fire, the skin began to drip. The voice distorted. You sold have listened. Samat grabbed the black stone from his bag and held it out. It pulsed violently, like a heartbeat gone mad. The figure shrieked. Not a human scream. Something deeper, broken, and hollow. It collapsed into smoke and shadows, disappearing beneath the floorboards. The room went silent again. Only the candle remained, flickering. Samat sank to the floor. The clock read 2:11 a.m., and he finally understood. This was just the beginning. The road to the listener. The next morning was colder than it should have been. Samat hadn't slept. The shrieking echo of the mimic still rattled in his ears, and the scent of burnt wax clung to his clothes. As the village stirred awake, none of the neighbors knew what had visited his house that night, or what had tried to become his grandfather. He packed fast, journal, the stone, the compass, which had finally stilled, eerily pointing east, food, a flashlight, and a hunting knife he found in his grandfather's old drawer. According to the journal, the Echo Caverns lay beyond the Red Cliff, a remote ridge over 4 hours' hike northeast of the village. But what haunted him more wasn't the journey. It was the phrase from the letter. Do not go alone. Find the listener. Who was the listener? As he walked through the village's dirt paths, Samat stopped by the small, dusty library near the mosque. It had been closed for years, but he still had the key from when he used to help the old librarian as a teen. Inside, shelves sagged under the weight of forgotten books. Faded newspapers lay stacked in corners, smelling of time and mice. Samat pulled out a thick folder labeled Archives, Local Legends. After an hour of flipping through brittle pages, he found it. A yellowed news clipping from 1984. Child survivor claims to hear the voices of the mountain. By Sada K. A 12-year-old girl, Ainura K., was found wandering the foothills near Red Cliff after being missing for 3 days. She claimed to have heard people whispering under the rocks and spoke of mirrors that echo your thoughts. Villagers dismissed it as trauma, but some say Ainura was the last known listener, one who can hear the voices without being possessed. She was taken to a psychiatric facility and never seen again. Samat froze. Ainura K. That was the same last name as Almaz K., one of the red X names in his grandfather's journal. Were they related? Were they all listeners? He stuffed the clipping into his bag and left the library. The sky had clouded over, casting a gray hush on the land. As he followed the old trail out of the village, he passed a rusted metal sign nearly hidden in the brush. Danger, unstable ridge, keep out. Samat didn't turn back. The path wound through dry grass, boulders, and forgotten wooden posts. Around midday, he reached a plateau where the land dropped sharply into jagged stone. There it was, Red Cliff. From a distance, it looked like a bleeding scar on the earth. Rust-red rock formations jutted out at odd angles. Beneath the largest cliff face was a black opening, barely visible unless you were looking for it, the entrance to the Echo Caverns. Samat approached carefully. The air around the entrance was unnaturally cold. Inside, it was pitch black. He switched on his flashlight. The beam pierced the dark, illuminating narrow stone walls, ancient carvings, and damp ground that seemed to whisper with every step. He stepped in. Each footfall echoed too long. The air vibrated around him, like the cave itself was listening. Then, a voice, but not a mimic, a real one. "You brought the stone, didn't you?" A figure stepped out from behind the rock. A woman, maybe in her 50s, hair streaked gray, eyes sharp, eyes that looked like they hadn't closed in days. She looked directly at him. "You're Muradali's grandson. I heard you coming before you left your village." Samat blinked. "Are you?" "Ainura." She gave a grim nod. "I'm the last listener. And you've just brought the key they've been waiting for." Samat reached for the stone in his bag, but her face turned pale. "No, don't take it out in here. They'll hear it breathe." Behind them, deeper in the cave, a low hum began to rise, like thousands of voices murmuring at once, building, echoing. Samat and Ainura turned slowly toward the darkness. "They know you've come." The chamber of whispered names. The humming in the caverns grew louder. It wasn't a mechanical sound. It was alive. Thousands of fragmented voices, murmuring, weeping, chanting in strange, overlapping patterns. The echoes didn't bounce naturally off the stone walls. They curved and looped, as if the cave were remembering every word ever spoken inside it. Samat tightened his grip on the flashlight. Ainura moved ahead, her steps careful and measured. "Stay close," she whispered. "And whatever happens, don't speak. Don't even whisper back." Samat nodded silently. They reached a fork in the passageway. To the right, a narrow tunnel dripped water from the ceiling. To the left, a wide hallway glowed faintly, not from any source of light, but from the walls themselves. Veins of blue-green crystal ran through the stone, pulsing like veins under skin. Ainura led them left. "These caverns were here before our people had names for the mountains," she said quietly. "The stories say the earth once tried to seal them, but something kept it open, something hungry." They passed a wall covered in hand-carved symbols. Samat recognized some from the journal, but here they were alive. The carvings shimmered, flickered, like they were being rewritten every second by invisible fingers. Suddenly, the walls around them spoke, not with voices but with names. Hundreds of names whispered from the stone. Beksin, Reisa, Gulnara, Muradali, Samat. He stopped cold. His name had just echoed from the wall. "Did you hear?" Ainura spun and covered his mouth before he could finish the sentence. Her eyes were fierce. No speaking. Then she leaned in and whispered in his ear. "If they speak your name, it means they've seen your thoughts. They're trying to mimic your mind from the inside." Samat swallowed hard. They kept walking. Deeper. Colder. The air thinned, the tunnel narrowed, and then the floor dropped slightly into a massive circular chamber. The chamber of whispered names. The walls here were completely smooth, glass-like, with thousands of names carved in a spiral that circled up and up toward the dark ceiling. In the center stood a pedestal made of obsidian, shaped like an open hand. Ainura stopped at the threshold. "This is it. This is where it ends, or begins." Samat stepped forward, his skin crawling as his name whispered again, louder this time. "Samat. Samat. Samat. Why is it calling me?" he asked, despite himself. Ainura didn't answer. Instead, she took the journal from his bag and laid it on the pedestal. The stone pedestal absorbed it. Literally. The journal sank into the black surface like ink being pulled into cloth. The hum stopped. Dead silence. Samat and Ainura exchanged glances. Then the pedestal spoke, not in a voice, but through vibrations that moved through the air and into their bones. "One key remains. The seal is cracked. The listener has returned. The boy bears the mark. Open the third gate." Ainura's face turned pale. "No," she whispered. "We're not ready." From the wall behind them, a section of names cracked open like a door, revealing a hidden passageway. A deep wind blew out of it, but it carried no dust, only sounds.